Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Paula Duren, and I'm the Director of Universal Dementia Caregivers. And I'm here today to talk about a subject that a number of people have given me a call. They were asking about issues. They've been trying to get their families to help with caregiving, and they have not been successful so far. And they said, would you spend some time talking about some strategies, some approaches on how we can get assistance from our family to assist us with caring for our loved one? So I'd like to spend time with that. And I'm sure that's especially important now because many of our caregivers are feeling isolated and more isolated than normal because of the pandemic, and they can't get out and move around the way they would like to. So they're a little more frustrated probably being in the house. And I wanted to just talk about that and see if we can't give some assistance on how we can support them in getting their work done. But just let's talk about a few facts as we start. That for right now, the most recent report I saw for 2020 is that 53 million caregivers are providing unpaid care. So many of these loved ones that are providing support to their moms or dads, aunts, uncles, or families, friends are not being paid. Most of the caregivers are women. About 61% of the caregivers are women. Many of the caregivers have health issues themselves. So in addition to managing and supporting the loved one with their issues, they have issues themselves. And as you have heard me speak before, not only do they have issues themselves, they don't take care of themselves, and they're called the second silent patient. To health issues, sometimes they are having financial issues. That's probably especially true right about now. And there aren't very many places or organizations that provide financial support to caregivers. There is legislation in place that's being reviewed, and efforts are underway to try and get more financial support for caregivers. There is respite support. That, please give me a call. The challenge right now is with respite, and I'm believing it will change in time, is that respite represents someone potentially coming into your home and helping to free you up for a while, doing some things that allow you some time. There are some organizations providing that support, and give me a call and let me know, and we could possibly connect you to someone else that might be able to provide that. So with that, it's kind of the foundation. I want to also let you know that many families, when it comes to asking for help and asking for assistance, they move that conversation into conflict. And that conflict in many of the families, unfortunately, about 1 in 4 families never resolves the conflict. So there is a cost. The additional cost is some families never get back together. Yet we really want and need the family to work together, focused on the needs of the loved one. Sometimes other things become priority, and we'll talk about some of those issues and what some of the problems are. But I can't emphasize the importance of taking care of yourself, taking care of your loved one, and trying very hard to work together. And when we think about some of the common mistakes families make, and these are also the things they argue about, or they fuss about, or never really get resolved. One of the biggest ones is, I hear caregivers all the time talking about the workload's not balanced. Meaning, I'm doing all the work, I'm doing all the caring, and my sister just drops in every now and then, or my brother won't do it, mom or dad like that. So the caregiver starts feeling overwhelmed and feeling like there's no out. Another major issue they fight over or disagreement is who's in charge. This one is really significant because if there's some family dynamics already, those things, if there's problems in the family, those things are only escalated during these times. So the issue of who's in charge is something you really could address prior to the person becoming ill or no longer able to care for themselves. And one of the things I recommend, so if you're going to write anything down, one of the first things I would do, if at all possible, is get the legal documents in place. Who will make decisions for you, or who's making decisions, and what kind of authority do they really have? We partnered with SAFE, which is a program through Wayne State University Institute of Gerontology, and they provide support to caregivers, and it's free. LaTanya provides that support in helping families resolve issues around this discussion, because underneath this notion of who's in control, I hate to say it, a lot of times it's all about money. It's all about money. And the problem is, if those things aren't written out and in place, and I don't know for you during this time and written your own will, because nothing, I used to always say, tomorrow's not promised. And I now understand that more than ever, that tomorrow is not promised. But prepare for tomorrow, so that just in case you do leave, you do die, or you transition, you don't leave your family in a lurch on what to do and how to do it. And I really just kind of pin that down. If you haven't written your will and you say, well, it costs too much money, there are some legal aid, free legal aid groups that provide support to do that. Again, if you're interested, send me a note. I would be happy to refer you to some organizations. And if all else fails, pin it in your own hand until you can get to the way it should be. Pin it in your own hand, and that is fairly legitimate itself. So that's one of the issues that families argue about, is who's in charge. Another one is when part of the family is in denial about it. The loved one has dementia. Because with a dementia, a person living with dementia, depending on what stage they're in, it may not look like they have dementia. There's some moments they are very lucid and very connected to everything. And when your loved one comes in to visit, your family comes in to visit, it seems like they just kind of become healthy all of a sudden. But then when you're there by yourself, you tend to see the real progression. And so there are strategies around that too, because if a loved one is only dropping in and out, meaning a family member, have them spend more time with your loved one with disease, so they can see the kinds of issues that you're having to deal with on a regular basis. So that one relates to family in denial. Sometimes families don't know enough about the disease, so they fight over that. There's just so many things people can fight over. Medical decisions, how will they be treated? And if you put that in a will and a document, people don't have to worry about that, or put someone in charge of honoring the needs of the loved one. I think that it's really essential that we do that. Any childhood issues that go unresolved in the family, I'd like you to know they start to show up. If they didn't like you as a kid, and now as an adult, they still don't like you, but you just didn't know they didn't like you, please know that stuff shows up. And I just say you just need to be honest about it. So those are some of the things they fight over. And I think what's important is that we just continue to support each other as we can. I told you about the empowerment program with Wayne State University. I'm kind of thumbing through some of the slides I want to share. There's also one more thing I'd like to talk about, is that people fight over. There really is a lack of appreciation for what a caregiver does. Caregivers are doing everything. They're cleaning, they're cooking, oftentimes they have to manage the financial situation, maybe getting groceries, and a family that could work together could divide those tasks in such a manner that everyone would feel like they were contributing and making a difference, and no one person has to feel overwhelmed. Because what happens if my caregiver is overwhelmed and burns out, a sick caregiver provides sick care. So we need to make sure we're a caregiver. And on the other side of that, our caregiver has to allow you to help. Sometimes our caregivers believe that they are the only one who can provide the best care. And I won't fight you on that. Maybe you are, but you can't provide care, just care. Allow other people to help. And when they come to help, you don't have to watch them. Allow them to help, and you go do something else. You go relax. You go experiencing some life in the process. So there are a number of things they fight over. But I'd like you to think about another tip. This is tip 2. Think about your family and its patterns. Every family has patterns. Patterns on how they make decisions, patterns on who makes decisions, patterns on how many people have to touch it. Our family was really good at fighting folks outside of the family. So as a family, we would bind together and we would work hard. We could get issues resolved. But I don't think we were as good as addressing issues that we had within the family. So some of those things were unresolved, and to this day, they still are unresolved. But the research tells us that a family that has these abilities, decisions together, abilities to divide the caregiving workload, and able to function as a team, can be successful in caring for a loved one with any kind of long-term disease, and as you know, we specialize in the area of dementia-related diseases. So let me repeat those. A family that has the ability to divide the workload so that people feel involved and engaged and contributing. The family that has the ability to make decisions together, and then that's focused on the decision, not what's best for any one of them, but what's best for the loved one. And then finally, a family that can work as a team can be successful on this caregiving journey. Let me just give you a bit of a case study, and I will stop for you at the end of this. I was told about a family and supported a family that there was, mom had dementia related to dementia. Matter of fact, she had Alzheimer's, and dad was sick also. He also had a dementia related disease. And in that, the family, as well as to supplement. But they got into conflict when it was clear there was nothing in writing. So who was in charge became the biggest issue. So if I came to you as a caregiver saying, we're struggling, we're really struggling. We're trying to I don't even know if we're trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out how to care for mom. And all you knew and all that you had right now was that there was a family, several themselves were in conflict about how care would be administered. You would need to engage them on each of them to understand, what do they see as the services needed? What are their personal concerns? And then try to bring that family together to talk to each other. And I mean, really talk to each other. One of those conversations about our loved ones, our family members, such that we can actually hear them. Because if we don't honor and respect each other, and you'll hear that in conversations often, you will never get past the issues or concerns. So, but there are ways, if a family is in some kind of conflict, I would recommend that they have one-on-one discussions, try to have discussions together. They should have a family meeting. And in the family meeting, you can even have it facilitated. And a facilitator would allow you to have conversation, and they wouldn't be biased on one side or the other, but they would help the conversation move and help the family hear each other. You could always bring in a professional mediator to do an intervention to understand what the issues are and the concerns of the family. And some of us might even want to bring in our ministers if they are identified as unbiased persons that can be part of the conversation and steer the conversation. But finally, if none of those things work, it's also important to at some point decide, is it loved one with this, whatever the disease is, and they feel it. And what we're doing is adding the stress that we're having into the life of the loved one. So at some point we have to decide, is it worth it? And we might want to let it go. So just a really quick step back. What we've talked about is that many families are not necessarily paying attention to the workload of the caregiver. There might be times when the caregiver is overwhelmed and feeling burdened. Not communicating with it either. So to my caregivers, people can't read your mind. If you need something, you need to ask for it and be specific about what you need. To say you need help is a wonderful start of that conversation. But what would you like help with? Would you like someone to come one day a week and relieve you? To prepare meals and bring them over to the house? Would you like someone to come over on Wednesday and wash the clothes for the week? Would you like someone to just give you a full day off where you could go somewhere else and go to a hotel or wherever and get away? But think about what you need as continuing that role. What do you need personally so that people can help? I have found that if you're specific with people, they are more likely to be able to help. So that's another tidbit. Be clear on what you want. Also, as I indicated, don't assume people could read your mind. I've heard people say, well, they should know. They come over here and see, they should know. Instead of being upset and angry, you need to tell them so you know they know versus assuming that they know. You're asking what you need from siblings instead of just saying this general blank statement that's typically angry. And I've been there, but be more specific about what you need. I would encourage you to start planning together if at all possible. Really needs to understand the full scope, because too often we think the care plan is as simple as caring for the loved one at home. No, there needs to be a complete care plan. You need a plan about not only how they will be serviced at home, but who are the doctors? What are the roles the doctors are serving? Who's managing the medication? Who's looking down long term? Who's looking at the disease or whatever it is that and the progression of the disease and what we should be looking for. But if we keep each other in the loop, we can encourage each other, support our loved one even better because we're all more educated and aligned. And to me, alignment is a powerful thing. Peace can come out through alignment. So acknowledge the strengths of each of your family members. To me, that's essential because sometimes we'll say, all she can do is this, or all he can do is this. Well, if one of the brothers says, I can contribute money, take it. But they don't want to go to hospital visits. I'm okay with that. As long as somebody does the hospital visits and does the doctor's visits. We have to talk as a family to understand what are the gifts that you're bringing to help support mom or dad or our family friend, such that we honor all of those gifts that are being offered up. Needs to be the primary caregiver at all times. Someone has to be the primary caregiver. As much as we may not feel it ourselves, but you have to be the primary caregiver. But also it's important to know that that primary caregiver then has the ability to make decisions. They will keep you informed, but they will be making decisions just in time, right there at the moment. Something happened in the middle of the night, they may have to respond and then let you all know what happened. We ask you to trust each other and each other's intentions so you will not get into conflict. I would also encourage you to engage, keep the doctors informed, engage a professional if you're in conflict and you can't get over it. But my last thought on this whole conversation about families and conflict is that we have to make the loved one who's living with the disease the priority. They are the priority. Not you, not your wishes, not your desire to be in control, not your dislike for your rest of your family members or your love for your other family members. It is really important that the loved one with disease is the most important person in this. And we're all just together. Our next conversation we have next Thursday is we're going to talk about caregiver burnout and what are some of the signs, because families need to be paying attention to the caregiver as well as the caregiver paying attention to him or herself and thinking about what are my signs? What are the signals that are saying I'm getting tired? I had a caregiver call me recently and she was experiencing a lot of guilt. And as we talked, like she could no longer take care of her mom at home. And that's a hard decision to decide if indeed it's time for other home housing kind of arrangements to be thought through. I say when you make those kind of decisions, you have to ask yourself, it's about the loved one first. Can they receive the best care here at home? Or can they receive the best care somewhere else? And if the answer is family have to talk through that and see what the moment is. And what this family decided to do is they decided that because of the virus, even though it might be receive the best care in a facility, there was too much risk in moving mom into a facility right now. So they decided as a family, they would work together more. They would pay more attention to each other. They made some personal commitments to each other, not for each other, but so that the care of mom would be the primary focus. So I hope that was helpful in our very brief discussion. My summary of that is caregivers ask for help. Family members, please listen and pay attention and know that caregivers often feel isolated, angry, and burdened. Know that the primary person in any relationship when it comes to caregiving is the loved one living with disease, and that we are focused on caring for them. Any other tips I gave you, feel free to send me a note. I can repeat anything. I also have a list of other tips, but the main thing is take care of yourself, be safe, take care of your loved one, and take care of each other. I'll talk to you soon, and I look forward to having a conversation with you in the future. I'm Dr. Paula Duren. I'm the Director of Universal Dementia Caregivers. Please send us a note on Facebook for sure, but you can also send us a note at paula@universaldementia.org. Have a great day.